Welcome back to another live and amplified livecast. I'm your host, Tom Quat, and we are back at it again with another amazing podcast. We are smack dab in the middle of our 25 days of Christmas. It is our podcast series. I don't know why I fumbled that one, but it is our podcast series where we celebrate and promote independent Christmas music. And today is no different. We have a very special guest. We have Julia Cozby. How's it going today?
Real well. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually quite funny because we had Sarah Harrelson on a couple of days
Yes.
ago, and she reached out to me afterwards and was like, "Hey, are you still looking for guests?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I've still got a couple of slots open," and she suggested you, and that's just kind of how it happened. So it's kind of interesting that afterwards we found out that we both lived in New Mexico.
Yes, and I still live here
Yeah,
today.
nice. So for just kind of as a brief introduction for anyone that's just kind of meeting you for the first time, what's kind of your background story? What got you into music?
Oh dear. Well, I grew up in a musical family. My mother was an incredible musician. She sang, played the piano, played the clarinet in high school. I think I only saw her ever play the clarinet a couple of three times. And my dad was also an amazing singer. His whole family has amazing singing talent, and also, musicians as well. Like I have cousins. Like my dad was from a family of 11 children, and so I have a lot of cousins on that side of the family,
Yeah,
and several of them are incredible musicians, very accomplished instrumentalists, and of course singers. So it runs in the family, and I was blessed enough to be born into a musical family.
nice. Awesome.
And
Awesome.
I just, moms, how they kind of make kids do stuff. Mom always had us signed up at church choir, and as a result, we were always signed up in choir in public school. And then I started taking voice lessons in high school, and I was given a scholarship to the University of Missouri Kansas City
Wow.
Conservatory of Music to study vocal performance out of high school. And I did take them up on that offer, and I was only a conservatory student for 3 semesters.
Mm.
At that time, they didn't really have programs other than and I played guitar. I started guitar lessons in high school
Mhm.
and played guitar off and on for a few years, throughout my life, and started learning cover songs in about the 2000s for fun. And I ended up, I've lived in a few places since my um, since leaving Kansas City in 1996. But I lived in Louisville, Kentucky for about 2.5 years.
Nice.
And I ended up, when we finally, that was the place we lived before we moved to New Mexico.
Hmm.
And before I moved, I was going to get a mandolin. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go get an instrument, and I'm going to try and figure out like another instrument, I was a huge bluegrass fan, still am
Hmm.
anyway.
Yeah.
Went to Guitar Emporium, which is a really cool instrument musical shop
Hmm.
in downtown, kind of an old neighborhood in Louisville, thinking I was going to go in there and buy a mandolin. And I ended up buying a dobro. Once I had my hands on it, I just couldn't not take it with me. And that was in 2010. And that was when we moved to New Mexico.
Nice.
Um, and so I kind of dabbled with it for a couple of years, and then through the work I had out here, I met a guy that was in a band, and he's like, "Hey, I'm in this little porch string band. You want to come jam with us sometime?" And that's the beginning of this phase, this musical phase.
Hmm.
That's when I started playing the guitar and learning cover songs to teach the band.
Nice.
And then I was also playing the dobro too. But then I started writing my own music in 2013 after I had gone to a bluegrass music camp in Grass Valley, California.
Mm-hmm.
And I just started writing songs, and people were liking my songs. And,
Nice.
so that's what led to me doing the album with Montrose Records in 2019, getting that released. And then that's what led me to uh, Synapse Publishing
Hmm.
finding me and wanting me to record some songs for them. So
Nice.
that's how it happened.
Awesome. Awesome. So I guess the ultimate question that I want to ask is, how did you, or why did you choose to move to New Mexico? Because like
Ah,
that's, I know a lot of people, when I tell people that I live there, they always ask me why. And it's like, my story is probably not quite as interesting as yours. So,
okay. So during the years, my husband and I lived in Louisville, Kentucky.
mhm,
I worked at a firm that specialized in historic architecture and archaeology, and I was
mhm,
their office manager. And I met an archaeologist at the office, and we started talking about how much we loved the Southwest and all. And previous to living in Louisville, my husband and I had lived for 6 years in Escalante, Utah, and we owned our own outfitter and guide service. And so we were hiking guides and had a little outdoor store. And
mhm,
we ended up selling that and moving to Louisville for a couple of years to kind of help out with some family things. And that's when I
mhm.
got that job. So I always wanted to go back to the Southwest. And this
Yeah.
friend I met in Louisville was like, I'm working at this archaeology firm. And, if you end up coming back out, come back to New Mexico and let's
Mm.
talk, because I think it might work out. And so I was laid off from this big firm at the end of 2009 because of the downturn, the recession that hit
Yeah.
me and a bunch of people. And they had several offices. And so they kind of cleaned house at all their offices.
Mhm.
And so came back out to New Mexico, and I called my friend up, and I'm like, hey, what's going on?
Right.
Do you have a job for me?
Yeah.
And he's like, actually, we do. Our office manager is getting ready to retire. She's moving on to another career, and you'd be
Mm.
perfect.
Nice.
And that was in April of 2010. Oh, no, right around about this time in
Mm.
2009, 2010, and
Yeah.
lived in Albuquerque for a few months until
Yeah.
the position here came open. And the position was in Tularosa,
Hmm.
and
Gotcha.
moved down here. And we just fell in love with it. This is
Yeah.
kind of like the spot
Hmm.
for me. It's not for everybody,
Yeah. No.
but
It when I left Roswell, I was in Roswell in the right. So I moved to Roswell in 2013,
okay.
and I left in 2017. Uh, and it basically because my career was kind of, I had outgrown Roswell. I
Yeah.
was, there wasn't a whole lot of opportunity. I work in TV. So I do like news production. I work for like commercial production and stuff like that.
Okay.
And there isn't a whole lot of opportunity in Roswell there. Like we had a TV station, it was cool for the like our first big job out of college. And I was there for 4 years. And I was tired of being poor, essentially, is what it was. Uh, and I moved to Florida and I was even poorer. So who knows?
Wow.
Um,
That's quite an ecosystem shift.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Wow.
Well, the move to Florida was because my parents live there.
Okay.
And so
Yep.
it was kind of like an agreement, like, hey, I'll move closer, but it didn't last but 2 years. So yeah.
So where are you at now?
I'm in Waco, Texas.
Oh,
Yeah.
awesome.
So
Okay.
I still go out to Roswell 2, 3 times a year. I used to go, like when I first moved here, I'd go out like once a month or once every other month. But
Okay.
that drive through West Texas is an experience.
Long.
Yes,
It's
there you
long.
go. So I
Um,
cut that really quick. So
I've been playing in a little string trio here hereabouts for about the last 6 years with a couple of guys. And one of the guys I play with, his parents live outside of Waco, and we went and visited and stayed with them a few years ago, 2018, and played one weekend at the Little Pearl Bluegrass Schoolhouse thing.
Yep.
You know what that is?
Yeah.
It's so cool. It really is. And
it is.
So that was super fun. But yeah, I know exactly whereabouts you are.
Yep. It's this area, as big and as vast as it is, you're if you're kind of in one scene, I guarantee you we know at least 7 to 10 people.
I think so. You want to start naming names?
Kind of, yes, but
yeah.
But so you're out in New Mexico now, and it seems like you're doing really well, and the music is taking off. You've got a new single. As we record this, it's getting ready to drop, but once this releases, it's out. It is a Christmas single. Do you want to kind of give us a breakdown on what this is about?
Sure. So I still have family that lives in Louisville, Kentucky, and we were back visiting winter of 2017, and we were out on a Sunday drive, so to speak, out in the country because it's very scenic. In the winter, though, it's kind of barren and stark. And we were driving out of the city on a road called Bardstown Road, which takes you to Bardstown. Okay, and there were a lot of big trees along the road that, without their leaves, you could see mistletoe. The big clumps of stuff, and there were so many trees with this. And I was like, you know what? Mistletoe in the trees. I think I might write that song. So after our afternoon of tooling around, I got back to my sister-in-law's house and sat down and wrote the lyrics out. And then I got the music sussed out pretty quickly. So it's not, I mentioned Bardstown Road in the song, but I don't really straight out talk. There's no mention of Kentucky per se, but it was inspired by Kentucky. And anyway, that was in 2017. And when I met up with Synapse Publishing and Doris, who is the principal there, she asked me to say, hey, share some songs with me. Let me hear some of the other songs you have that you did not record with Montrose. And I said, okay. And that was one of them. And she picked it out right away. And we recorded it in October up at Montrose Studios in Ruidoso, so I didn't have to drive far. That's only about 45 minutes from where I am now. Nice. And had a great group of musicians, and the producer was Dale Penner, who I'm eternally grateful for because, man, he's got quite the list of accomplishments and achievements. He's from Canada, and
Oh, well.
Worked with a lot of folks, and the violin stuff on there was put in later by a musician in Nashville named Jason Mowry, who's played with a lot of people, a lot of big names, and does session work, just like most people, in the Ville, they're doing the music grind. But man, talk about value added. His violin just makes it poof, brings it to life.
Yeah. So you said when you were when this song got picked out, they wanted songs that you hadn't recorded previously. Why do you think this song hadn't been recorded previously? Was it just kind of because it's such a seasonal song, or?
I think so. When I recorded my album Keep on Walking, it kind of was a process of about 18 months or 2 years, about thereabouts time, to kind of get the whole album done. And the songs that I would bring the songs and show the studio musicians that day. And so the album, it didn't really fit with what was going on with the rest of the collection that was going into the album.
Yeah.
So I just never brought it. And also when I write, interestingly enough, usually when I write a song, I hear it as a bluegrass song, completely. I hear the arrangement, I hear the instruments, I hear it when I'm writing this tune. And I definitely heard that while I was writing the song. So that's great that it was sort of, aligned with Kentucky and, it was inspired by that.
Hmm.
But it just, it I had this fantastic guitar player that was working on that record named Dave Millsap, who
Hmm.
used to play for Delbert McClinton for decades. And he's a special talent, and
Hmm.
he brings a certain level of uh, his energy and his spice to what's going on with the music. And so it didn't quite fit with those songs at that time. So that, I think that's just why.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's it was just kind of interesting because the way you kind of describe it, where they were very quickly to pick this song out,
Mhm.
it to me it was just kind of interesting. Um, so with this song, it's out. Is this the first kind of like Christmas song that you've done, or
Yes.
okay?
Yes.
Um, how's kind of gone through that? Obviously, Christmas songs are a very, I'm not going to say difficult thing to do, but they're a very interesting process to kind of go through because, it's definitely a feeling when it comes to Christmas music. You got to kind of be in a certain mindset. And most people aren't in that mindset in, say, June when when you usually have to kind of start preparing for
Right.
something like this.
Right.
um so what was kind of the recording process? I know you said you recorded up in Ruidoso, which is
Yes.
if anybody hasn't been to Ruidoso, it's a really really cool ski town, or a mountain town, I guess. Technically
Hmm.
both are true. So I'm guessing it probably wasn't that hard to get yourself into a fake Christmas spirit. So
Well, the studio where we recorded has a glorious view of Sierra
mm,
Blanca, which
mm,
is the main mountain that dominates the landscape all around. And, there were huge ponderosa pine trees all around, so it wasn't terribly difficult. Um, we recorded Mistletoe in the Trees at the end of a long day of recording 4 songs
mm,
altogether. So it was the
yeah,
fourth one we kind of sat down and worked on. And I mean, the guys that played on the record, I played it through once, and then we did a take,
yeah,
and that's it. The
right,
recording is the first take. It turned out that good on
nice.
that first take.
You know what though? I think
That's
that's
like
just
when
kind of
stuff like that happens, it's just like, this is why
yeah,
I do music,
right.
just
Yeah, it's I think that just kind of speaks to the moment, like the moment that you were in, the song itself, and like just your ability as a music. Like there's a lot of factors that come into play on that one, because it's like, you know, and just when it kind of all coincides and it just happens to be that first take, it's like, all right,
yeah.
that's awesome. So,
Yeah, it was like super cool. I
mm,
just like floated out of there that night. It was like,
right,
oh, I worked really hard today, and my gosh, I can't believe we got that done in one take.
yeah,
Wow.
right, right, right.
And then I ended up, that was just for the instruments.
Mm-hmm.
I did a scratch vocal, of course, while we were doing the instrument stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the next 2 days, I recorded my vocals with Dale Penner.
Nice.
And
Nice,
so it
nice.
was a 3-day process for me. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, hey, you got to spend 3 days in Ruidoso. I always
I
enjoyed going to Ruidoso. So,
I can go there anytime. And it's funny, I live down in what's called the Tularosa Basin. It's at the
mhm,
foot of the White Mountains and the Sacramento Mountains.
mm,
And so if I want to drive up and be in winter, I can do that. And then if I want to come back to the desert, I'll just come back. You know what I mean?
right.
Like,
Yep.
I grew up in Kansas City,
Yeah.
lived there 30 years before I ever left town. And so I was never a fan of winter.
Yeah. It,
And so it's nice to have the choice now,
right.
it's
Right.
a,
Right.
it's a positive for me
Yeah.
living here.
I will say though, anytime I move somewhere, they'll like when I moved to New Mexico, the first time, or not the first time, when I moved to New Mexico that first winter, I was asking everybody that I worked with and all the people that I was meeting, I was like, hey, how are the winters out here? Like, I've never been to the
Hmm.
Southwest. What are the winters like? And they're like, well, it gets cold, but for the most part, there's not a whole lot of snow in Roswell. Like,
Right.
it's really not that bad. Maybe we'll get like one okay storm, but by noon it'll be gone because the sun will be out. And it's like, okay,
Right.
cool. Like all that I can handle.
Mhm.
And then like the second winter I was there was that like superstorm Goliath thing where it was like, hey, would we get like 18 inches of snow or
On
something?
the
And I'm like,
eastern side of the state.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It was
And
crazy. It's like, well, it was
right,
just one of those freak things.
yeah. And I happened to be in Florida at the time because that all like transpired right around Christmas. And I'm getting ready to go back home. And my dad's like, hey, have you checked your flights? Are they delayed? And I'm like, no, why would they be delayed? Like, there's nothing going on. He's like, you need to watch the Weather Channel. And I'm like, okay. And so I turn it on and I'm like, oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah. So I was like, yeah, it was quite the experience. So
Oh, yeah. The second year we lived here, I think, was 2011. It may
yeah.
have been the winter of 2012. There was a once in like 500-year deep freeze where it
Mm.
got to 20 below here for like 3 days.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, that was it. Thank goodness it hasn't repeated itself.
Right, right, right. We had that in Texas here a couple of years ago,
Oh,
and that
that's
was
right.
that was an experience. So
Oh, man.
it like
Can't.
anytime I move somewhere south, they get like freak snowstorms, and it's like, geez, maybe I just need to move further south. I don't know,
No, do you just bring it with you,
right, right,
right?
right. So, um, with this being a Christmas podcast, and we focus very heavily on Christmas themed stuff, there's a few very specific Christmas questions I have to ask you.
Okay.
So, what is your must-watch Christmas movie every year?
Probably Love Actually,
Okay,
with
fair,
maybe Die Hard to shake it up.
fair.
I don't know.
I didn't actually, so I didn't realize that Love Actually was a Christmas movie.
It's not necessarily, but it
Uh,
takes place around Christmas. I don't know. People have had this argument on the internet
yeah,
for a few years.
yeah, fair. I mean, I guess it's the same argument with Die Hard, and but my take is
Right.
if Die Hard's questionable, then so is Home Alone because like
Right.
Christmas isn't really the pivotal plot point of the movie. It's just happens to be on Christmas.
Right.
So,
Right. I'll
but
probably think of a whole nother movie like, oh, that's the one.
fair, fair. And then growing up in Kansas City,
Yeah.
what do you miss about Christmas in Kansas City?
The Plaza Lights.
Okay.
That was that's a big tradition there. It's gone on for decades.
Mm,
And as a little girl, we'd all pile in the car. I think on Thanksgiving night was when they flipped them on. And,
yeah.
before traffic was insane, when I was a kid there, you could drive down and drive around the plaza and look at the lights. But it's incredible. And if y'all are out there listening to this and you're like, what's that? Go look it up. It's out there
Mm,
on the interwebs. There's videos and pictures of it.
nice.
Oh, it's incredible.
Nice. I might have because I'm driving back to Chicago, where I'm from, for Christmas, and I'm trying to um I need to go visit my mother's grave. She passed away a couple of years ago, and I
Sorry.
haven't I haven't visited her grave since we buried her. And so I keep telling myself, sorry, I'm not getting emotional over here. My throat is getting a little dry. Um,
I know I've got my cup over here.
right. Um, and so I keep telling myself every time I go north, it's like, oh, just swing over. My mom's buried in Rockford, Illinois.
Okay.
Um, and it's like just swing over there. It's not that big of a deal. But I find myself in a time crunch, and I was doing some research on my way on a route that I can take, and it takes me right by Kansas City, like just to like one of the ways. And I'm like, you know what? That might be kind of cool. But then again, with weather, who knows? It
right.
might be snowing or something, and I
You
don't
might
want it to.
get right. You might get ice sheeted or snow
Yep.
blizzarded out. It just depends. You just have
Yeah.
to like look ahead and plan,
Yeah.
see what
So
you can plan. But yeah, Kansas City's a great town, great restaurants, and of
nice.
course the barbecue.
Hmm.
Um, Great music scene.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty solid.
Yeah.
My friend.
I've got a few people that live in Kansas City that are music, like a few people we've had on the podcast and stuff that are in Kansas City, and it's just
Mhm.
kind of like they keep telling me like if you can get yourself here and just kind of experience the scene, it's a really cool scene. So,
I played at Porch Fest in
oh well,
Kansas
yeah,
City in October for the first time. And
nice,
it was so cool. It was
that's
really cool.
nice. Speaking of festivals, we were talking a little bit before we jumped on here about you've played UFO Fest a couple times out in
Yes.
Roswell, which
Yes.
is really cool. Like it's it's one of those festivals that I feel like when I first got there, the music was kind of just just to kind of be there, but then as the years kind of rolled past, they started like really
Mhm.
focusing on the music, which was kind of cool. And
Right.
yeah,
There's a woman that got involved with that named
yep,
Marie Manning
yep,
Leck. And
yep,
she's the one that just sort of picked it up out of the wherever
yeah,
it was and just really pulled people together and like
yep,
really reached out and just got behind the whole scene. And
yeah,
the first time I played there was with a different string group that doesn't really exist anymore in 2017.
mm-hmm,
And it was fantastic. We've had 2 days. They put us on the bill for 2 days, and
nice,
so that was super fun. And then after the second day, there were still the thing about the UFO festival people don't know is that they have like known personalities come
mm-hmm,
in and do
yep,
lectures. And so you can go and listen to, for say, at that time, Stanton Friedman was,
yeah,
around. And I went to sit in on Travis Walton's lecture and I
mm-hmm,
was blown away.
yeah,
It was so cool. Yeah, it was
yeah.
great.
So fun little piece of trivia. Our very first guest on anything that we did was Marie. Like she was our very
Oh,
first guest. Yeah.
wow. That's
Uh
so cool.
when we were building out like the what we thought we wanted this to be, it was me, my buddy Jeff, Marie, and our other buddy Nate. He let us use his garage, and we're just kind of sitting in the garage in
Awesome.
December. And
Oh,
it, yeah, so it was quite the experience. So
that's so cool.
yeah. So what was the name of the band that you were playing with in 2017?
Tularosa Basin Musicians Union.
Okay,
A little
gotcha.
mouthful there, but
Yeah.
yeah, the guy that founded it ended up moving away, and so we kind of just fell apart for a couple of years. But then
Mm,
the one of the guys I played with at the time is playing with me now in the little string trio.
mm,
So we just
nice.
call each other, but now we call each other Three Rivers, the number Three Rivers,
Okay.
because we're all three of us are songwriters.
Hmm.
And so we've just been going out and playing acoustic gigs and then I played a lot of solo gigs this year,
Yeah.
um, a lot.
Yeah.
And then this opportunity to record this music was presented to me in September, and it just sort of came out of the blue. It's like, what?
Yeah. Nice.
What?
That's really
Okay,
cool.
yeah, let's make some music.
I
Okay.
dig it. That's awesome. That's really cool. It's yeah, that it's kind of interesting just how things kind of come out of the blue like that,
I
where
know.
it's like things are going one way and then like a flare or something over here kind of goes off and it's like, oh, hey, that's an opportunity. Like somebody's getting my
Right.
attention. So that's really cool how that just kind of goes. So how did you get involved with I'm sorry, what's the name of the publishing company you're working with now?
Synapse Publishing
Synapse. How'd you
and
get
Entertainment.
yeah, how did you kind of get involved with them?
Uh, so the gentleman that recorded and produced my first record, Richard Cagle, had
Hmm.
a public relations fellow back in Houston named John in Houston.
Hmm.
And the folks at Synapse Publishing uh, also had used him for public relations for some of their artists.
Mm.
And he, John in Houston, knew me and knew of me. And Synapse Publishing was looking for some women songwriters. They just wanted to like start exploring some themes with women
Mm.
songwriters and supporting women in music. And he recommended me and Doris, the principal of the company, got on the
Mm.
phone with me and we just talked for like 3 hours and it seemed like 20 seconds ago. I
Right.
mean, it was just one of those things.
Nice.
So, just sort of things progress from there.
Awesome. Awesome. That's really cool. And now you're releasing music and you
Hmm.
just dropped your Christmas tune and
I
it's
know.
out there. And but before we wrap this up, I know you're kind of doing like a social media push for this.
Yeah.
Are you doing like a music video? Have you thought about that, or is that not really?
Pictures and, so we're thinking, I'm very, I'm I'm kind of shy about I'm not shy talking to you like this
Yeah.
is feels like we're just having a Zoom call and
Yeah.
it's cool and everything, but like putting myself out there, I'm a little bit shy yet. So um but I kind of have to do something about that.
Yeah.
It's just part of the game.
Fair enough.
I'm gonna try and get together a lyric video. So
Okay.
that's something I'm gonna start on, I think this weekend, do a little
Cool.
project,
Well,
little fun computer project.
yeah. Lyric videos I think are a very underrated
Me
like
too.
format, because I've seen some really cool lyric videos and it doesn't have to be anything crazy, but in lieu of doing a music video, I think a lyric video is just kind of like a really cool thing to have out there.
Right.
So
I'm
uh
gonna I'm gonna do I'm gonna attempt.
nice.
Yeah, I'm kind of a computer nerd, so we'll
Yeah.
see what happens.
I had a friend up in Santa Fe ask me. I normally I don't do lyric videos just because like for whatever reason it's something that I never really got into as a video producer and whatnot. But I had a friend up in Santa Fe. She was releasing a single and she was like, "Hey, could you make a lyric video?" And I'm like, "I could sure
Hmm.
try." Like, I mean, it was just kind of like a mindset that I had never been in. And I went back and watched it the other day, and I'm like, yeah, I wish I would have not done that, but
I
it is
know.
what it is.
It's funny as a musician, and I'll
Mm.
tell you, every time you listen to like the final version of the song,
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, "This is it,"
Yeah.
it happened with me with the first EP I recorded in 2017.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot about that in my music journey. I had already written some songs, and I put together a little EP of 5 of them here in Tularosa at
Mm.
Studio Productions of Tularosa with just some local folks,
Nice.
and that got the attention of Rich Cagle up in
Mm.
Ruidoso. And we recorded this. This is the
Nice.
CD. Keep on
Nice.
walking. But the little EP I recorded here. Um, uh, what was I going to say about that? Oh, where was I going?
Lyric. We were
Yeah,
talking about
lyric
lyric video.
videos,
I'm
right?
listening to the final mix of.
Yes. And so when you listen to the final mix, it starting even with that project, I
Mm-hmm.
was terrified that it wasn't right.
Mm-hmm.
Needed to change this. This isn't working. Same thing happened with this record to a lesser extent though, because it's
Mm-hmm.
a fine album and Richard did a great job. But
Yeah.
you listen to a couple, things. I wish this had happened. I wish
Yeah.
this didn't happen. And it's just a thing with the musicians. And it's like maybe it's an artist thing. You
Mm.
constantly want to tweak it. You want to tweak it. Is this going to make it sound different? Is this
Yeah.
going to make it sound better? Or whatever. I think a lot of musicians have that.
Yeah.
It's just sort of like constantly want to keep working at it,
Yeah.
you know.
I think it's just a creative thing in general. Any kind of creative, whether you're a painter, graphic designer, video editor, whatever it
Yeah.
is. I think that's just consistent across the board. Because like my boss, she'll sit here on an edit and like it's due at 5 o'clock. Five, like say we have an edit due at like 5 o'clock. It'll be like 10 p.m. and she's like nitpicking over like the littlest detail. And it's like, okay. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that feeling. I know
Yeah.
that feeling. I hope she edits out me like losing my train of thought.
Hey. Oh, perfect.
Nah, just kidding. It's
Yeah.
okay.
So just kind of wrap everything up and put a nice little neat bow on everything. If anybody wants to check out Mistletoe in the Trees,
Mhm,
just check out your social media, any of that fun stuff. Where's the best place to find you?
mhm. I'm on a lot of places. And Instagram and Facebook, I'm Julia Cozby Music, and that's Cozby.
Mm.
Um, on TikTok, I'm Julia Cosby. There might be one or I'm it, I think, in the
Yeah.
whole world because my name is spelled so differently. Cozby.
Yeah.
There's just not a lot of us out there.
Yeah.
Um, and Spotify. The song is definitely coming out on Spotify, and
Mm.
if you like what you hear, I really hope you continue to follow me on Spotify.
Hmm.
If you out there listening, folks, if you like the music and you want to check out some of my other older things, there that stuff's there too, and at YouTube as well, Julia Cosby Music. So
Nice.
yeah, so
Awesome.
I'm out there. I mean, if you just type in Julia Cosby in most social media places, you're gonna probably see
Awesome.
me.
Awesome. I just followed you on Spotify just before we jumped on here.
Oh,
So
cool.
excited to kind of keep updated on everything and all that fun stuff. So, um, but once again, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Thank you everybody for tuning in and hope you all have a Merry Christmas and we will talk to you all later.